Horace Mann said we should be ashamed to die until we have made some major contribution to humankind. And if anybody watch you and observe you, they know that you are possessed. As much as you have chosen this path, you were chosen for this path. You can't help yourself. You are possessed. You have got to do it. And I'm possessed, and I know it. I know I'm not playing with a full deck. I know it. But I'm having a good time. Yeah, it's great to be me.
Hi, it's Robin Sharma, and you're tuning into the Millionaire Student Show with Sashin.
Sashin.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Millionaire Student Show. Today's guest is one of the most sought after speakers. In fact, when you hear the words motivational speaker, you hear his name. He came from the midst of adversity, where he and his twin brother were born on a dirty floor in an abandoned building in Liberty City, a poverty-stricken area in Miami. Later on, he and his brother were adopted by a single mom in which she grew up 7 children. He was labeled mentally retarded and a dumb twin in his 5th grade due to his hyperactivity and inability to concentrate. Because of that, he was placed in a special education class until high school. And now his voice is heard globally whilst he's living a life full of prosperity. He's a best-selling author to several books. He has spoken to crowds of 80,000 people. He has featured in NBC, Success Magazine, and Inc., and many more. This dynamic individual has a client base of Disney, McDonald's, AT&T, and many more. I'm going to introduce him exactly how he introduced himself on radio as a disc jockey at his first job. Look up, this me, LB, Triple P, Les Brown, your platter playing popper. There were none before, and they'll be done after me. Therefore, that makes me the one and only, young and single, love to mingle, certified, bona fide, indubitable, qualified to bring you satisfaction, a whole lot of action. Look up, baby, I'm your love man. Please help me welcome Les Brown to the Millionaire Student Show. Les, thank you so much for your time, your energy, and most importantly, for your wisdom. But I've got a power-packed podcast. I've got a power-packed, schedule of questions that I want to be able to pick your brain. I want to be able to, pick that wisdom, pick that energy, and impact people from different ages, backgrounds. But after we met in Los Angeles, and by the way, I totally appreciate you letting me into your circle and giving me your time of day at almost midnight about a year ago. But you told me one thing. You said, Sashin, you have greatness within you. And I've heard you say that on videos. I've watched you say that to people. I've even heard you say that from stage. But most importantly, I want to take you back 4 to 5 decades ago, even 6 decades ago. Do you remember the moment where you first found greatness within you? How did it feel and what did it look like?
That's a good question. I never had the question posed to me like that. First of all, I want to thank you for having me on your program and for the work that you're doing, the light that you're bringing, and the hope that you're providing for millions of people. I really appreciate it, and I consider this an honor to be able to spend time with you. I think that I realize, based upon experiences that I've had, that there's a presence in all of us that I call greatness, that I call hunger, that's transcendent, that gives us the power to handle and overcome anything that life throws at us. And it's an ongoing process. I was born, as you know, in an abandoned building on a floor with a twin brother, Wesley, and we were taken in as foster kids, and then we were adopted. It was 7 of us all together. And I remember when I was in the 5th grade, I was identified as EMR, labeled educable mentally retarded, and put back from the 5th grade to the 4th grade and failed again when I was in the 8th grade. Don't have any college training. But I had a high school teacher who, Sashin, he's just like you, that positive, unstoppable energy. And he challenged me. I was looking for a friend of mine that was in his class. He said, young man, go to the board and work this out for me. And I said, sir, I can't do that. I said, why not? I said, I'm not one of your students. He said, go to the board and do what I'm asking you to do anyhow. And I said, I can. And I was looking down. He said, look at me. And I said, yes, sir. And the other students started laughing, saying, he's Leslie. He's DT. He's got a twin brother, Wesley. Wesley's smart. He's DT. And he asked, what's DT? He's the dumb twin. And I said, I am, sir. And he came from behind his desk and he looked at me and he said, don't you ever say that again. Someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. And in that moment, I was startled with his response. My mother used to say, sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can never hurt you. Words can hurt, and very deeply. But when he spoke, when we speak, when we train, and the speakers and the salespeople that are listening right now, how people live their lives as a result of the story they believe about themselves. He interrupted my story. And that's what we do: distract, dispute, and inspire. We distract people from their current story. And through how we present ourselves, our knowledge, our experiences, the tools that we have used to carve out the life that we now live, we dismantle their current belief system and inspire them to become a pencil in the hand of God and start writing a new chapter with their lives. And so when I left that room on that day, I left a different person. I didn't feel like the dumb twin anymore. I left with an expanded vision of myself beyond the taunting and the bullying and all the things that had been said about me. And I decided that this was something that I wanted to do, is help somebody who's gone through what I'd gone through, being seen as the dumb twin, and help people to begin to get an expanded vision of what's possible for them. And that early time, I was 17 years old because it was my junior year in high school when I met him. And up to that time, I'd been in special education every year. Every year I had to go. My twin brother didn't have to go, but every year I had to go. And so, but that helped me to not only survive poverty, but to thrive and be able to emerge and be a force to be reckoned with.
So would you say, did you have a sense of proving people wrong by their opinion of you? Or did you just want to create that message?
I wanted to create a new me. I started listening to motivational messages, and I heard Earl Nightingale said that you don't get in life what you want, you get in life what you are. So I wasn't focused on acknowledging and proving anything to anyone except making myself a better person. So I started listening to, and I encourage people to develop a ritual. I started listening to motivational messages on a regular basis that he suggested. I started reading 30 to 40 pages every day. And the reason that that's important is that when you have goals and dreams beyond your circumstances and mental conditioning, you're going to experience some challenges. Things are going to happen that you just can't see coming. And so in order to become successful and to discover your greatness, you want to have goals beyond your comfort zone, because that in that process, in pursuit of those goals beyond your comfort zone, you discover a part of yourself that you don't know right now. And so it's very important that we challenge ourselves every day and realize that we will fail our way to success. that 87% of people allow their fear of failure to outweigh their desire to succeed. You've got to become a risk taker. And the title of my book is called You Got to Be Hungry. Well, what do you mean by that? People that are hungry know that you're going to have challenges. And that determines, that introduces you to that power, that presence in yourself to overcome those challenges. People that are hungry, that are relentless, they're unstoppable. They find a way to win. And I was determined not to be poor. Coming up in the South, being in a segregated South, being in a hostile environment that was determined to destroy my sense of self, that I knew that when you're hungry, you know your will and your hunger has to be stronger than the forces that are trying to contain you, that's trying to oppress you. And it's a perpetual ongoing process, and having a mindset that I'm going to make it happen no matter what, that you will not determine my destiny. This place where I am right now, this is not the end of the story of my life. I'm coming up out of here.
And that is exactly how I actually got introduced to you, because when I was 8 years old and my parents subconsciously played self-development, they forced books into me. I was at straight D student, so I can relate when you came from school, and I listened to you at 10 years old. My very first audio, when my dad was driving from work to home, I could hear Les Brown speaking on radio. Now I'm just thinking it's some sort of an artist or a musician. I didn't know about personal development. I didn't know this whole, this world was called self-development. But Les, was this your calling? Did you just find out that people are naturally running around aimlessly? The majority of people are lost. They don't have a plan. They need that message. Was this something that you were passionate about, or you just saw the gap of helping people through your calling?
I believe it's a calling that we were created by the Creator to create. All of us are here to do something that we were chosen to do. It, like this work that you do, that you're on a mission. And as much as you have chosen this path, you were chosen for this path, what you're doing with your life. And it's an ongoing process. And so I believe that when I began to see the results of my working on my mind, listening to motivational messages. My mother worked on Miami Beach for wealthy families. She adopted me and 6 other children. So I was among 7. 7 is my lucky number. I was born February the 17th. I just turned 75.
By the way, I'm the 11th of February.
Is that right? Okay, so you Aquarius too. Okay. So just turning 75, I've been reviewing and looking at my life. And so what I realize is that most people die at age 25 and don't get there until they're 65. They don't take the time for self-reflection. And we are given that right now. My daughter, Dr. Ona Brown, she said gaps are from God. That this moment where we are, we should see this as a cocoon, that no matter how fast a caterpillar runs, it can never fly. He has to go into the cocoon, and he's not in there watching CNN or NBC or CBS. He's in there working to convert those legs into feathers so he can fly. And so this is a time where we have to work on ourselves so that make sure that we are dramatically different when we emerge from when we came into this space where we are right now. And so I work on myself constantly. I believe that you're never too old to learn and you're never too young to teach. I learned things from you when we had conversations together. And so as we look at ourselves, it's very important that we are open to the possibilities. We don't know enough about ourselves to be a cynic. We can do more than we can ever begin to imagine. But most people allow themselves to be governed by the belief system of the culture where they are. And so you have to be hungry in order to break out. You have to be hungry to decide no matter what you do or how you come at me, I'm going to find a way to win. That's major in life, because people who are casual about their dreams will end up a casualty. Life is not to be played with. This place where we are right now, we have never been here before. This is new territory. But we all have had experiences in our lives as new territory. When a doctor looked at me 27 years ago and said, you have prostate cancer, and it's metastasized to 7 areas of your body, and you have probably about 6 or 7 months to live. My daughter was there with me, Dr. Ona Brown. And I asked him, he had a weird sense of humor, Dr. Alfred Golson. I said, can you give me a second opinion? He said, yes. And you're ugly too. I said, you didn't just call me ugly, did you? He said, yes, I did. You're ugly. I said, oh my God. And then he just stopped, got serious and said, but you got this. We determine the diagnosis. You and God determines the prognosis. You got this. And when he said that, when we laugh, our mind shuts down and the heart opens up. Where your heart is, there your treasure is also. And so I left there with a heart full of courage and determination that this was not going to take me out. And so there will always be times in our lives when things will show up. Seeing my mother die, I was new territory. I'd never seen anybody die before. And the anchor of my life, I'm a mama's boy. And I always say I'm here because of 2 women. One gave me life, the other one gave me love. God took me out of my biological mother's womb and placed me in the heart of my adopted mother. And I feel like Abraham Lincoln, who said, all that I am and all that I ever hope to be, I owe to my mother. And so this period where we are and the things that we experience, they are there to help us to grow mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And Viktor Frankl, who wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, he said that adversity introduces a man or woman to themselves. And so this is a time where we're going to discover things about ourselves. We're going through some stuff in America that's showing the true character of America. And there are people who are having meltdowns and nervous breakdowns and living in fear. And this is a time that, Zig Ziglar says fear is forget everything and run. That's the acronym that he uses. But he also said, face everything and rise. And so there are people who are running scared, but there are people who are rising in the midst of all of this. And out of this, billionaires will emerge, and millionaires, and new inventions, and new businesses, and new industries. Even after all of this stuff is going on, because it has not come to stay, it has come to pass. And so that there are 2 types of people. I say 3 types. 1, those who watch things happen. 2, those who don't know what happened. And 3, those who make things happen. And so we have a choice. Choose ye this day whom ye shall serve. Choose to make things happen in your life and in the lives of others.
Les, you've always been that individual that has determination, grit, and most importantly, you've just been knocking on the door until it breaks. If the door has a lock on it, you literally are persistent enough. And those are some of the traits that actually make someone who they are today and who you are. And I want to go back to when you were rejected. And you literally wanted to become that disc jockey, because motivational speaking wasn't something that you looked to as an occupation. So let's go back to the very first day when you showed up to that studio and you wanted to be a disc jockey. Walk me through that. Walk me through that grit that you had when you looked that general manager in his face when he rejected you.
Well, how did I know you would go there, Sashin? Well, Mr. Washington asked me, what do you want to do with your life, young man? I said, I want to buy my mother a home. And he said, how do you plan to do that? I said, I'd like to become a disc jockey. So he said to me, he said, here, you take my card. I want you to go see Milton Butterball Smith at WMBM radio station. He is a young man that I trained. Tell him I recommended you. And as I was walking away from him, he said, anything you want in life, including being a disc jockey, you got to be hungry. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, people that are hungry are relentless. People that are hungry are unstoppable. I said, sir, I am hungry. I'm hungry to take care of my mother. I'm hungry to make my mother proud. And so I went to the radio station and said, hello, Mr. Butterball. My name is Les Brown, sir. I'd like to be a disc jockey. He said, young man, you have any journalism in your background? I said, no, sir, I don't. You have an experience in broadcasting? I said, no, but let me audition for you, sir. Let me show you how good I am. And he said, no. I was devastated with rejection. People who've ever been rejected, they know that first rejection is major. So I went back to him. I said, Mr. Washington, they said, no. He said, don't take it seriously. Most people are so negative, they'll say no 7 times before they say yes. He said, you got to be hungry. Go back again. So I went back again. Hello, Mr. Butterball. How are you, sir? My name is Les Brown, sir. I'd like to be a disc jockey. He said, I know what your name is. Weren't you here yesterday? I said, yes, sir. Didn't I tell you no yesterday? I said, yes, sir. He said, then why are you back today? I said, sir, I didn't know whether or not someone was laid off or somebody was fired. He said, no one was laid off or fired. Now get on out of here. And so I left, and then I came back the next day, like I was singing for the first time. Hello, Mr. Butterball. How are you? My name is Les Brown, sir. I'd like to be a disc jockey. He said, weren't you here yesterday? I said, yes, sir. Didn't I tell you no yesterday? I said, yes, sir. He said, why are you back today? Sir, I didn't know whether or not someone got sick or someone died, sir. No one got sick or died. No one was laid off or fired. Now don't you come back here again. I came back the next day, talking loud, looking happy like I was singing for the first time. Hello, Mr. Butterball. How are you, sir? I'd like to become a disc jockey. He looked at me with rage. He said, go get me some coffee. I said, yes, sir. My favorite book says, the greatest among you will be your servant. So I became the errand boy for the disc jockeys. I would go get their lunch and their dinner, and I'd stand in the control room watching them working their hands on the control board, knowing my time will come. I'm saying to everybody that's listening, just whatever you're after, have a mindset. My time will come. It's here now. Hold a vision of it. The Book of Life says, I'll give you all your eyes can see. And so I would stand in the control room watching the disc jockeys working the controls, memorizing the things they did. And then on the weekend, when they came out to the parking lot, I had waxed their cars, cleaned it inside out. They come out and they were shocked. Hey, who did this? I did, sir. How much do you charge, young boy? Oh, nothing, sir. I just wanted to help out. They said, wow. I said, look here. Donna Ross and the Supremes are coming to town. The Four Tops and the Temptations. Here are my car keys. Go pick them up and take them to the Fontainebleau Hotel on Miami Beach. I said, it'd be my pleasure to serve you, sir. I would drive the disc jockeys, big long Cadillacs all over Miami Beach. Didn't have any driver's license, but I was driving like I had so. And then one day, it was a Saturday afternoon, a disc jockey by the name of Rockin' Roger was drinking while he was on the air. And Rockin' Roger got a little drunk, got a little tipsy, and he was slurring his words. And I was the only one there looking at him through the control room window, walking back and forth, young, ready, and hungry. I was saying, drink, rock, drink. I'd have gone and get him some more if he'd asked me to. I said, drink, rock. And then pretty soon the phone rang. It was the general manager. And I said, hello? He said, this is Mr. Klein. I said, I know. He said, Rock can't finish his program. I said, I know. He said, will you call one of the other DJs in? I said, yes, sir. I hung the phone up. I said, now he must be think I'm crazy. I called my mama, my girlfriend, Cassandra. I said, y'all turn up the radio. I'm about to come on the air. And so then I waited 20 minutes and I called him back. I said, Mr. Klein, I said, I can't find nobody. He said, do you know how to work your controls? I said, yes, sir. He said, go in there and segue the records, but don't you say nothing here. I said, yes, sir. I hung the phone up. I got old Rock out of the way. Stevie Wonder had a song out. He was 12 years old called Fingertips. And I put that on and I started rapping. Hello, this is me, LB Triple P, Les Brown, your platter playing papa. There were none before me and there will be none after me. Therefore, that makes me the one and only. Young and single and love to mingle, certified, bona fide, indubitably qualified to bring you satisfaction and a whole lot of action. Look out, baby, I'm your love man. I was hungry. And so I got the job.
Les.
I encourage all the people that's watching you. They need to go on YouTube and put in Les Brown speaking in the Georgia Dome before 80,000 people. When I tell that story, they'll get more enjoyment out of it. But that's how I got into broadcasting.
Literally, Les, persistence removes resistance. Literally, if you going out there and you hungry enough, as you said, I mean, personally, I went through 145 people who rejected me when I was 18 years old in my very first ever sales job, or when I was in the sales world. And I was in school uniform, wearing a suit and a tie, getting rejected, people spitting in my face, people telling me those things don't work, you're never going to succeed. And in less than 6 years, we added $1 billion in sales. So respect you for that, because that has made you who you are today.
There's no question of the power of persistence. Og Mandino, in his book called The Greatest Salesman in the World, there was an affirmation that he had I love. It's called, I will persist until I succeed. That's the way people that are hungry think. And Calvin Coolidge wrote this poem that said, nothing can take the place of persistence, talent will not. The world is full of unsuccessful people with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education alone will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. And so when people are after something that they want, something that's in their heart, something that gives their lives a sense of meaning and power and purpose, that they'll come back again and again and again. They will find a way to win. And my goal was to buy my mother a home. I bought her 4 different homes before she passed at 89. I'm old school. When I came up, women didn't pay bills. Men pay the bills. A woman, if she wants to work, she does that. But whatever money she earns, she keeps it for herself. But a man paid bills. And so I told my mother, Mama, when I become a man, you'll never pay another bill. So when I turned 18, I sat her down and I worked to pay all the bills and to take care of her. And so the desire to do something that was beyond my comfort zone, to buy her a home, to find a way to do that, it introduced me to a part of myself that I didn't know. And everybody that's listening, I believe, Sashin, that they have the ability to do more than what they could ever begin to imagine. But many people, because of the culture, because of their environment, that is so toxic and negative, it destroys their sense of self. There's a poet, Richard Wright, he wrote something, said, the impulse to dream has been slowly beaten out of me through the experiences of life. And I have a saying that life knocks you down trying to land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up.
Les, what was that first book that made you cry and shifted you in the path of action? Can I take you back to that moment, that first book or the first audio?
Yes, the book that really got me, the first one, was a little small pamphlet by a guy named James Allen. It's called As a Man Thinketh. And they have a female version of it as well. And he talked about the power of your thinking, of being able to change your circumstances. Then I've read Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, the power of positive thinking. And then I went from there to other books. But that first one by James Allen, and the harshness of his life, and he never allowed them, the things they did to him because he was a non-traditional thinker. They incarcerated him, but he was strong like a Nelson Mandela. He had a mindset that I'm going to be an independent thinker and operate to the beat that's in my heart. Henry David Thoreau said, if a man does not keep beat with his companions, perhaps he's listening to the beat of a different drummer. Let him dance to the music that he hears, however measured or far apart.
So Les, listening to some of your videos and watching them, and when people listen to this podcast and they actually watch the video, I have two acronyms: AA, absorb and apply, and AS, absorb and store. How vital is it for someone to actually go out there and AA, absorb and apply? Not tomorrow, not next week, right now.
In my book, I talk about hunger, and the N stands for now urgency. You have to act now. I was in South Africa, and across from me at a hotel was the late Miles Monroe. And so I went over to see him. I wrote the foreword to his book, Personal Potential, his first book. And I said, hi, my name is Les Brown. I'd like to see Dr. Miles Monroe. And she said, we know who you are, but he's doing a couples relationship seminar. So I tell you what, I'll set up breakfast for you tomorrow morning. And I reluctantly, my mind said, insist, but I decided not to. And then I was there early the next morning, and she came in, had a disappointing look on her face. She said, I'm so sorry. He left early. 2 weeks later, I got a call. Have you heard? I said, no. Dr. Miles died in a plane crash in the Bahamas. I said, oh my God, no. Yes. And so I believe when I was married to Gladys Knight, I remember being at a table and Frank Sinatra was at this table and he said, live each day as if it were your last, because one day it will be. That we have to live each day as if it were our last. We have to make it count. Michael Jackson and the people backing him, they spent millions of dollars on a promotion called This Is It, for stadiums, for marketing people, for personnel, and it never got off the ground. He had no idea that he was not going to be here. We don't know when our number's up, and that's why it's important that we make every day count. All of us have an expiration date. And when you live from that place with a sense of urgency, when you live from the place of I'm going to work and focus on not just getting through the day, but what I want to get out of the day. Before I sleep at night, I write down the things that I'm thankful for that I was able to get out of the day. And then I write down the things that I want to get out of tomorrow. I reflect on the things that I learned today that I did not know yesterday. But I write down 7 things that I will do tomorrow that when I get up tomorrow morning, it will be the agenda for my life. See, if you don't have an agenda for your life, you'll be a part of somebody else's agenda. So when I wake up, I say to myself, all things work together for good for those who love God and for those who are called according to his purpose. And then there's an affirmation I repeat to myself: Lord, whatever I face today, together, you and I can handle it. Lord, whatever I face today, together, you and I can handle it. And then I write down, Sashin, 7 things that I'm grateful for. It's called my gratitude list. And I read that, and then I look at my agenda, the things that I wrote down the night before, what I want to get out of the day, and I take off and start working in that direction. And
Incredible.
yes, and that keeps me focused. That keeps me on the right path, doing the right thing, moving in the right direction of my dream.
Hey, I want you to take a quick split second of your time. All I want you to do is hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. I want to update you when I have a next iconic guest on my show. Stay in student mode. Zig Ziglar says motivation is like bathing. You've got to do it daily. And I know you're studying on a daily basis, despite the age, despite the net worth. You've done it. You've spoken in front of 80,000 people. But how should the listeners make the motivation last longer than just 24 hours?
You do it by doing it over and over and over again. When I got up this morning, I had my attitude list and I had my goals that I want to achieve today. And then I listen to motivational messages, and I listen to myself, because during the time, many of those messages that I delivered, I was a totally different person. And you have to many times review. We learn through review, repetition, and reinforcement. And so I review and listen over and over again to reinforce those messages past my conscious mind to my subconscious mind. And I expand my vision of what I'm looking for, what I'm going after. And by our fueling our mind with positive words and allowing our doubts to starve to death, it gives meaning and power to our lives. And it gives us a sense of direction. And it connects us to that presence and that power in us that Dr. Howard Thurman, who was a mentor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he said, there's something in each and every one of us that waits and listens to the voice of the genuine in yourself. It will be perhaps the only guide you will ever have or hear. And if you cannot hear it, all of your life, your days will be spent on the ends of strings that somebody else pulls. I submit to you that the people that are listening now to us, that they've decided, I'm going to pull my own strings. There are people listening to us that have said, no, I'm going to control my own destiny. There are people who've gone on that this is not the message for them. This is not for everybody. But it's for those who said, I know there's got to be more. This is not me. Most of us go to our graves living a misplaced life. They died age 25 and don't get buried until they're 65.
Les, when you personally take in that dose of vitamins, PD, personal development, on a daily basis, the way you take it in right now, is it to learn or learn to teach?
It's a combination of both. One, I'm continuously reaching for goals higher. There are people out coaching and speaking, and they haven't done anything. Okay, I'm working on a global franchise. A good man leaves a legacy for his children's children. A global franchise that will compete with the Dale Carnegie course. I'm working on training the next legion of messengers of hope that will be a force of power and impact on the planet to help liberate people from the oppression and the limited thinking and various situations that's stifling their potential to grow and to express the next greatest version of themselves. So it's a decision that I'm going to make my life count. I believe that we are all here, Sashin, to live a life that will outlive us. That's why we're here. Horace Mann said we should be ashamed to die until we have made some major contribution to humankind. And if anybody watch you and observe you, they know that you are possessed. As much as you have chosen this path, you were chosen for this path. You can't help yourself. You are possessed. You have got to do it. And I'm possessed, and I know it. I know I'm not playing with a full deck. I know it. But I'm having a good time. Yeah, it's great to be me.
So it's so vital to surround yourself with change makers, disruptors, and the right circle of influence. Unfortunately, your circle is a direct reflection to who you are in life. And, you know, if you want to attract the right type of people, you need to become that right type of person. But you talk about positioning yourself with OQP, only quality people. And, Les, life is a psychological game, as we know, but more than 80% is right up here. There's two questions to this right now. How do people recreate the image of how people view them? And most importantly, how do they recreate that image and how they view themselves?
They are not responsible for how people see them. How people see them and what people think about them is none of their spiritual business. The only thing that they can control is how they see themselves, what psychologists call their self-explanatory style. And so by them working on themselves, they are emerging and growing and evolving constantly. Paul said, I must die daily. So we must die daily to who we've been, so that we can give birth to who we are to become. And that's an ongoing process. You have to be focused on that. It's a lot of work, but it works if you work it. A systematic process to strip away the things that we have had put in us from 0 to 5. According to Dr. Martin Steelman, who wrote a book called Learned Optimism, between 0 and 5. We determine what's available to us and what's not available to us. Between 0 and 5, we take on certain personality behaviors and characteristics that follow us through adulthood. In my book, You've Got to Be Hungry, I tell a story of being downtown with my mother, and I let her hand go to a water fountain to drink. And my mother, she screamed and said, don't you ever do that again. And she grabbed me by the neck and she threw me on the ground and she started punching me in my face, in my head, my eye. And I was screaming. I saw this crazed look in her eyes. And I said, Mama, it's me, Mama, it's me. And then after a while, this white policeman came and he said, hey, okay, you can stop beating that little nigger boy now. I won't have to beat him. And he walked away and he hit his hand with his billy club and started laughing as he looked back at me. Like, you won't do that anymore. And my mother, when she was getting me together and I was crying, and she was apologizing, saying, Leslie, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to beat you like that. But when I saw that policeman's face turn red and he gripped his nightstick and wanted to come over and beat you because you were drinking from a white-only water fountain, I had to do something to distract him, because had he hit you, he would have to kill me, and I'd have left you and your brothers and sisters to fend for yourselves. And so I had to do something, Leslie. I'm so sorry. And I said, Mama, it didn't hurt that badly. It's okay, Mama. It's okay. And then I knew the kind of world that I was in and what was available to me and what was not available to me. And there was a determination in my heart that nobody will contain me. No. That there was something in me that says, this is not right. I want to live a full life like everybody else. And I became very rebellious. And I became an old man at a very young age. And I'm glad I did. I think that everything that we experience, that there's something in it for us, that we learn from it, that we grow from it, that it can make us better or it can make us bitter. And I decided that regardless of the racism and all the things that I was experiencing, they had signs on Miami Beach that said, Jews, dogs, and Negroes not allowed. And I remember asking my mother, Mama, why do they hate us so much? And she said, I don't know, Leslie, but don't you ever be like them. You never want to be like them, son. I said, yes, ma'am, Mama. Yes, ma'am. And so I have been on a mission to make the world better for my children, for my grandchildren. I have 15 grandchildren, 4 great-grandsons, and for generations yet unborn. I went on a mission, and I'm still on this mission until I leave here.
But Les, when the phrase motivational speaker comes up, so does the name Les Brown. Today's generation, almost every entrepreneur that desires the spotlight strives to become a speaker because they might have the fortune, but they don't have the fame. So that's what they're driven for. But what would be a few traits that people should work on to own their stage?
Number one, you want to hire a coach, someone that speaks on the level that you want to speak on, that can look at you with trained eyes and help you to bring out a part of yourself that you can't do it by yourself. Mike Williams, he wrote the book called The Road to Your Best Stuff, The Road to Your Best Stuff. I saw him speak in Columbus, Ohio, and I watched him and I said, wow, I want to speak like that. He held people on the edge of their seats. He was very captivating, still is. And I wrote the foreword to his book, The Road to Your Best Stuff, Mike Williams. And I hired him as my coach and my strategist. Why is that important? Because you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. And you have to have someone who has a trained eye that can bring out the greatness in you. Serena Williams is considered the greatest tennis player of all time, but she still has a coach. The other thing is that what gave me a breakthrough, and I want to give them some tips in terms of what it takes to become a great speaker. 1, you have to have a superior coach. 2, you want to create an experience. When I came into the speaking business, it was focused on giving information from Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. If information could change people, everybody will be skinny, rich, and happy. I train speakers, and what I train speakers to do is what Mike taught me to do, how to create an experience and transform the audience individually and collectively. Oliver Wendell Holmes said that once a man or woman's mind has been expanded beyond their circumstances and mental conditioning, they can never be satisfied to going back to where they were. So creating experience. The other thing I did, while they were advancing with information, I advanced with my story. Stories expand the mind, touch the heart, and ignite the spirit. Stories, people remember those, they relate to those, and it touches the emotion. We're emotional beings. And so I teach people how to tell their stories strategically and how to custom design it for their audience. And I want people who have an interest in improving their presentation skills to write this down. This is key. This is a jewel. Never let what you want to say get in the way of what your audience wants to hear. Never let what you want to say get in the way of what your audience wants to hear. The Dale Carnegie course, which is a great course, they teach, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. No, that's them, but no. What I teach my speakers to do, conduct communications intelligence. We have a form that we send out to our clients and have to fill that out. The CEO of the company, the vice president, and the top performers. And then when I go there, I interview them, and then I talk to people in the audience. If you were in my position, what would you feel this audience needs to hear from me? And then I marry those things together to create the experience. And so if they get good coaching, if they put themselves in a community of collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships, and speakers speak, if they using the principles of you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great, and speak everywhere that you can. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he gave the speech, I Have a Dream, over 200 times before he spoke at the March on Washington. And so, to me, a career is something you love so much that you do it for nothing. And you do it so well that people will pay you to do it. I did a lot of volunteer speaking in prisons and juvenile detention centers and even elementary schools and daycare schools. You know, teachers said, hey, would you come back? Our kids love you. They love your laugh, you know? And I spoke to them to build my confidence because they didn't know enough to know whether or not I knew what I was talking about. But since then, I've spoken from AT&T, Procter & Gamble, McDonald's Corporation, General Electric, a variety of Fortune 500 companies. Now, I'm training speakers to do that.
The way you speak is very unique. I mean, I've watched you since I've been 10 years old, which is about 16 years ago. You dissect quotes as well as you deliver your message with a storyline. Do you feel that shifts people and touches their heart?
Yes, without any question, because you never make a point without a story, and you never tell a story without a point. So if I was talking to you and I wanted to make an example of this conversation, I was being interviewed by a friend of mine named Sashin. And one of the things I realized about him, that he's on a mission. He's on a mission to change lives. And he's very serious about that. And as you look at yourself and look at your goals, here's what I want you to write down. Be focused, steadfast, and relentless. Because those are the elements that describe why he's been successful. He's been focused, he's steadfast, and he's determined to make an impact because he decided that that was going to be the mission in his life. You see, so I pivot with you and an example of how you've lived your life to create value for the audience and making those points of what's required and what your life reflects.
So with everything that's happening right now in the world, with the coronavirus, to the racial virus, and soon to be the public recession virus, I mean, we're always going to have obstacles in life. But how do people mentally distract themselves and stay so zoned in to their inner world than the outer world?
My sister reminded me of something I said years ago, that in life, when the very core of your being has been shaken, we run to God only to discover that it's God that's doing the shaking. This is a spiritual watershed moment, a spiritual moment on the planet, that things are being shaken. And so what we have to do is be still and know. What is very important for us to realize, he said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. What we must begin to embrace, a setback is a setup for a comeback. We have comeback power, as Willie Jolly would say. What we must know that where we are has not come to stay, it has come to pass. No test, no testimony. And that we want to be mindful to keep ourselves out of harm's way. We want to be concerned, but not consumed with fear. We want to live a faith-driven life, finding answers in the heart, being focused, creating collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships. Ask for help, not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong. And ask for help, and don't stop until you get it. And to know this is not the end of your story, to know the best is yet to come.
And that's why people need to start viewing their obstacles and turn it into opportunities. This is the perfect time right now where people are going through pain and they need to turn that into their passion. They're going through a mess right now throughout this entire world, but turn it into their message. And the whole frustration of us not being able to leave home. And then when we leave home, we're seeing the whole protesting and the racial stuff. So we're turning that frustration into freedom. And we need to be able to make sure that this is only a mental game. We're here to actually go through that journey mentally rather than just physically.
Yes, and there's a fear frenzy that's going on. I was in the room by myself on the third floor where I am now, and I sneezed. And I ran out the room and got halfway down the steps. I said, wait a minute, that was my sneeze. I came back upstairs. I still got me some Lysol to start spraying. But my daughter, she heard me yelling. I said, oh, I think I'm losing it. I sneezed and I ran out the room. It was my own sneeze. I said, is this what happens when you turn 75? She said, you're watching too much television. And so I had to turn the television off, man. Oh my God. And it's addictive. But this place, it's a jarring place. We've never seen this before. And my heart goes out to people who've lost family members during this particular time. But I believe that there's something bigger. There's a spiritual episode that's going on, and that we're all a part of it, that we were chosen to be here at this point in time in history. And I think that what we have to do is stand. I have a saying, stand up for what you believe in, because you can fall for anything. And it's also revealing. Life is about surrendering and releasing. The true character of America is being shown now. And there's a new day that's revealing itself. And it requires new thinking. There's new fresh blood that refuses to be denied. That's coming. People are being pushed up and some are being pushed off. This has not come to stay. It has come to pass.
We were definitely not picked on. We were picked and we were chosen for this path right now. Les, there's a lot of people right now that are watching this from or listening to this that are actually in sales. Whether they're selling their time, whether they're selling someone else's products or their services. But at the same time, I've heard you say better sales begins with a better you. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. Well, first of all, you got to work on you, because people can smell commission breath, residual breath. And who you are behind the words are far more important than the pitch that you're about to give. When you speaking to someone, individually, small groups or large groups, people are asking three questions. Who are you? What do you have? And why should I care? And so when you work on yourself on an ongoing basis, people can sense your energy. There's a frequency behind our voices. There's some people that's going to listen to you, some going to listen to me, but some will listen to both of us. There's something about us, something about our voice, something about our energy signature that they will respond to. And so when you work on yourself on an ongoing basis and you develop a relationship with people, people don't want to be treated like a transaction. You want to develop a relationship with people. Relationships are very important now, more so than ever in my lifetime. And you want to let people know that you're there for them, that you're there to serve them, to help them to get to the next level, to help them to identify the goals that they want to achieve and how what it is that you have that can create some value for them. That's the key right now. And be in a community of collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships, that's their collective aim of serving people.
So the future has always been on our youth. And personally, I was introduced to self-development when I was 8, as I mentioned. But at the same time, that's how I came across you. And unfortunately, a parent can only teach their child what they know. So you talk about from age 0 to 5 is where we decide of what's available and not available to us. What advice would you give parents to reset their paradigm and instill their future, which is their children?
It's very important that parents monitor what their kids watch. You don't want to let them just watch television. You want to know who's in their ear. One of my grandsons came home, I think he's 5 years old, and asked, "What's a condom?" I said, "Who told you about a condom?" He said, "We were talking about it in day school." I said, "What?" Okay. He said, "I saw one that looked like a balloon." I said, "Who showed you one? You're 5 years old." And what happened? This is so crazy. So he and a little girl had gone in the closet of daycare, and they're laying on the floor trying to figure out what they were supposed to do next. Okay. And somebody found a used condom in the parking lot. And some of the little boys who were watching for them said, "I think you're going to need this." I said, "He brought you that?" I said, "Oh my God, these are old people. Oh my God." I had to go off to the daycare. So, man, when I was a kid, Sashin, you determine an adult based upon the information they had access to. But now with the internet, now with the telephone, they have access to everything. And when we think they're asleep, they are up doing research. They're up looking at stuff. And so you have to be conscious of how you live your life and limit the access, the poison that's out here for them to be exposed to. And you have to keep them busy. My mother used to say, an idle mind is a devil's workshop. So you have to have them involved in sports, in art, in speech and drama, in a variety of things to find out what resonates with them. And you got to know who their friends are. And you got to go over to the house of their friends to know who their parents are. You have to be very vigilant with kids today. This is a very dangerous world right now. And so being vigilant and being mindful and being intentional of the things that you expose them to, the values that you want them to represent is very important. And you have a good shot at raising children that will be an asset to society rather than a liability. that will allow them to begin to get out of their heads and get into their greatness and eliminate the virus of what I call HIV, hood-infected virus, AIDS, addiction to incarceration, and death syndrome.
Les, this has been incredible. This is a dose of not just inspiration, but picking your brain, having that one-on-one conversation, because everyone listening to this feels like they were asking you that question. I want to wrap up with a question. What does self-talk sound like with Les Brown?
You know, when I get ready to speak, I always say more of thee, less of me. When I spoke to 80,000 people in the Georgia Dome, I don't remember the speech. All I remember when Mike Williams gave me the microphone and said, "You got this, Brownie. You can do this. Make your mother proud." And so I train speakers how to speak from the heart. And before I go out, I'm saying to myself, use me. Use me as a channel. Use me to speak to someone that's in a tough situation or in a dark place. Use me to be a light, to inspire them, to bring them out. I can't tell you the number of emails that I get from around the world that people have said, "You saved my life." And I say, to God be the glory. I'm so glad that I was used as a channel to speak to that person's mind and heart and transform that energy to something positive that says to them, you can get through this.
Les, I don't want to say that you're an icon. I want to say that you're a living legend. And from the stages of the world where we get the chance to hear you or watch you, to actually being in the arena with you, and I watch you speak live in Los Angeles, but I will tell you something, that you've passed a gift on. Your legacy is teaching people on how they can further speaking as well as how they can generate an income from it. Les Brown, thank you so much for being on the Millionaire Student Show. Everyone that's participating and listening to you is officially a student, and they've got to be able to take that resource, that information, apply it, and the results are totally endless.
I received that, and I want to thank you for who you are and for answering the call on your life. You have something special. You have greatness in you. You're a masterpiece because you're a piece of the master. That's my story, Sashin, and I'm sticking to it.